I'm Gerry Summers, and I would like to tell you something of my work as head gardener of Clandeboye Estate. This is a private estate owned by the Marquis and Marchioness of Dufferin and Abba. I'm one of those fortunate people whose hobby is also his work, and more than that, I live beside my place of work. A short stroll every morning brings me into the middle of the gardens. After the season of dullness, death and decay, it's nice to see the sun shining again and the birds singing. Even the pheasant, which survived last year's shoot, struts forth, marking out his territory and searching for a mate. Although the season has only started, the vital job of deadheading begins. The bulbs must not be allowed to waste their energy in producing seed heads, but of making bigger bulbs for another year. A part of my job is to make sure Lord and Lady Dufferin and their guests are made welcome when they come home from their London house. This involves floral arrangements and the placing of pot plants in all the rooms, including bedrooms and bathrooms, and in this case here, the music room. As far as possible, the flowers are chosen to match the decor of the room, and of course require daily attention. Contrary to popular belief, watering is the most important part of growing plants. Too much could rot the roots, too little and the leaves drop off, not forgetting that different plants have different needs. Also, less water is required if the temperature is low and where the humidity is higher. When it is decided that watering is required, the morning is the best time of the day. In that way, excess moisture on the leaves has time to dry off before nightfall, when temperatures naturally fall. Because of the increasing number of functions held in the banqueting hall, surplus pot plants like these primula come in handy for platform decorations. You will notice the greenhouse is shaded with whitening to keep out the glare of the sun, which causes scorching of the leaves. Functions held include wedding receptions, barn dances, afternoon teas, even on our open days, and camera club dinners. On this occasion, I'm using Primula obconica in various colours and Calceolaria, sometimes known as fishermen's baskets. Dinner in the big house is always by candlelight, so the flowers or foliage for the table decorations are chosen to match the colour of the candles. Close collaboration with the butler is the order of the day on these occasions. Here I am using evergreen foliage of the Cryptomeria family as a base to cover the oasis block. Also red camellias and a sprig or two of white heather, all of course grown on the estate as Lady Dufferin prefers. The inclusion of the heather is significant as a gesture to one or two friends from Scotland who are included in the guest list for this weekend. This is the rock garden, situated about half a mile from the house along a riverside path, but perhaps better known to us as Brenda's garden, Lord Dufferin's grandmother. This is a beautiful spring garden with a rich variety of flowers and shrubs, such as the deciduous and Japanese evergreen azaleas. Continual dampness in the air means that we have to watch out for lichens which grow on the azaleas and cause unsightly dead branches. Being evergreen prohibits the use of tar oil washes to curb any disease that results, so there is nothing for it but to do a lot of hard work by hand. The 70 acres of Clandeboye Lake hold a great variety of ducks, but for a number of years now we have had a resident pair of mute swans. This year they have delighted us by rearing no less than 9 cygnets, and although the lake is very rich in nutrients and produces various species of plants, an occasional diet of white bread doesn't seem to do them any harm. Swans are the largest of the waterfowl and among the most graceful despite their size. We sometimes get occasional visits from hooper swans from Strangford Lough, but the mute swans usually drive them off, all to do with territory and food requirements. In very dry weather, the water level in the lake goes down, which happened in the summer of 1976, when Bangor bought thousands of gallons of water from Clandeboye to augment their water supply. Then the water birds were in dire straits, but it has never dried up entirely as it happens in other reservoirs. Lady Dufferin, who does a lot of entertaining, always has time to come and see what is going on in the gardens, checking up on the latest plantings and going over the plants still to go out, planning her requirements for next autumn's orders and so on. The questions and ideas come thick and fast from one who knows her plants, and sometimes her spirit and enthusiasm leaves one almost breathless. Her other great passion in life is painting, especially flowers, and one very often comes upon her sketching in amongst the shrubs, creating her impressions of what she sees. In 1969, Lindy Guinness became a full-time artist and studied at the Slade, since when she has had 5 one-man shows in London and in Northern Ireland and one in Dublin. She has painted in India, in Morocco, in Greece, Italy and Mexico, and many of her shows have concentrated on the experience of exploring a particular country, but uppermost has been her painted observations of the life cycle of flowering plants. These plants, of course, are always taken from the garden at Clandeboye. Lady Dufferin's idea is think of the gardens as paintings, each area designed so that colours and shaping come together interestingly and with surprising harmonies. The gardens are being slowly developed with this in mind. She illustrates to me through her pastel drawing what she has in mind, using subtle colours, and instead of producing an exact replica of what she sees, she uses colour to express her excitement about her subject. She says a good painting takes on a meaning, life and a vitality of its own, regardless of whether it is a realistic or abstract. When the weather is good, the Duffrins and their guests often dine in the conservatory, so we try to keep a good display of plants going, like for example these amaryllis in pots. They are long-lasting and come in a variety of colours, of good strong stems with attractive leaves, and they grow from a bulb which gets bigger and better year after year, and what's more, produce young bulbs which help to increase the stock. As everyone knows who has tried his hand at gardening, aphids are the #1 enemy of the majority of plants, even more so during hot, dry weather. Greenfly attack nearly all plants and leave behind a sweet secretion known as honeydew, which is often followed by sooty mold fungus. A sucking insect such as this is best eliminated by contact poison, as in any reputable contact insecticide. Speaking of spraying, one of the best and safest sprays for outdoor use against weeds is gramoxone, or weedall as it is known in the shops, as long as you don't drink it, of course, because it contains the deadly paraquat. The safety element is that it is non-residual and becomes neutral as soon as it hits the ground, and only kills what it lands on, so it is safe for spraying around shrubs and along the edge of lawns and paths, and doesn't affect the roots. This is the meadow brown butterfly, quite often seen on dry grass or hay. We have over 12 kinds of butterflies seen in Clandeboye, and if you are keen to have them in your garden, then I suggest you plant plenty of buddleia, the well-known butterfly bush. They assist in the great work of fertilization. Hoverflies are also common on sunny days, going over the flowers. They are internal parasites on bees and wasps. Grass cutting is the biggest single item of work during the summer season. Much like the painting of the Forth River Bridge, it seems to be never ending, but with some student help, plus 2 fly mows, a bowling ride-on tractor and grass cutter, and a gang mower, we just managed to cover the ground. There's always something of interest to see in Clandeboye, especially for the nature lover in general, and the ornithologist in particular. And if photography is your hobby as well, there is lots to shoot and share with your friends in the winter evenings. What we are seeing here is a coot rearranging her nest of eggs after arriving back from perhaps a forage for food, or having been frightened away, thinks all is clear again. A nest of 3 or 4 nearly white eggs would certainly attract magpies, for example, so a covering of dead vegetation acts as a camouflage. We are very proud of the fact that we have a pair of great-crested grebe on Clandeboye Lake. They are exclusively aquatic, infrequent flyers, but expert divers. When alarmed, they hold their thin necks quite erect. There are 2 requirements for the enthusiast, however. One is a well-positioned hide, and the other is lots of patience. The little grebe is slightly more plentiful here, but very shy and sulking. Watch it uncovering its nest for an hour period of incubation, showing how effective the hide is in watching wildlife. This smallest of the grebe family, also known as dabchick, is a tailless little bird, almost black in summer, with cheeks and throat of chestnut brown. The nest is a floating tangle of water weeds. Like all grebes, the parent covers the eggs with weed before leaving them. Other ducks on the lake at various times include coot, moorhen, tuft ducks, mallard and pochard, attracted by the great wealth of lake vegetation and the safety of open water. A good summer day is a chance to take the boat out down the river from Mooring Bridge to the lake to see if we can get some water lilies for the table decorations. How lovely they look floating on glass bowls and reflecting the silverware on the polished dining room table. To help me on this particular trip is Siobhan, trainee gardener from the Department of Economic Development, who is on a 45-week practical training course before going on to Greenmount Agricultural College to do her diploma in horticulture. During the height of the growing season, the lake becomes silted up with pondweed, and though a bit difficult to paddle through, is rich in organisms attached to the underwater parts of reeds and animal life, which is attractive to herons, for example. Among the flowers we grow in the greenhouse, fuchsias are one of my favorites. Here we see some of the 60 varieties of American hybrids planted in 8-inch plastic pots. Fascination, a favorite of my wife. Orange Pearl. Ted Heath, a good strong grower. Swing Time, one of the best and a very popular variety. Thalia is one of the trifoliate type of fuchsia. Checkerboard. Snowcap, good for growing as a standard. Pink Fairy, rather delicate, but should always be included in a collection of fuchsias. Fuchsias are very susceptible to greenfly and whitefly, so during the summer they require spraying with clean water, sometimes even twice a day, while the sun is shining to keep them healthy. To produce flowering pot plants in the early spring when outdoor flowers are scarce, the seed is sown during the summer months of June and July. In September, these seedlings are then pricked out into plastic vacupots to make a good root system before their final potting into 5-inch plastic pots. The compost used is made by ourselves to the formula recommended by John in his number 2 mixture, namely 6 parts of loam, 3 parts of peat and 2 parts of sand with base fertilizer added. After pricking out, they are transferred to the setting out benches and watered carefully by sprayer so as not to wash out the tiny seedlings. Finally, the seedlings are covered with newspaper to keep the direct rays of the sun from scorching the leaves until the roots have taken hold. This applies to all seedlings and not only primulas as you see here. Every large estate has its walled-in garden, and Clandeboye is no exception. This garden has always been called the bear garden, where bears were kept in the old days, but by right it should now be called the fruit garden. All 4 walls are covered with fan tree and fruit trees, and on this, the southern wall, are the apples. One of my favourites is Worcester Pearmain, which not only can be eaten straight from the tree, but also improves with keeping for later in the year. The one drawback about growing fruit near a wall is that they're inclined to dry out very quickly during the summer and need watering, but we have helped to improve the situation by heavy mulching with farmyard manure, which fortunately we have plenty of at the farmyard. Virginia creeper covers the big house and is particularly spectacular in autumn when the red leaves contrast well with the grey stonework. Much of the planting at Clandeboye has been chosen for its autumn colouring. The maples, the azaleas, the chestnuts, the birches, from the brilliant reds to the golden yellows, a last show of colour before the fall. If there's one thing we have plenty of in this state, it is leaf mould. Some of the best places to find it is in the Tower Woods. The road that winds up through these woods leads to a clearing at the summit, and as one approaches there is suddenly a gleam of light among the undergrowth, and there is Helen's Tower rising slim and strong. A stone turret stairway leads from the ground floor past 3 rooms one above the other, and at the top a roof bastion. It was built by the first Marquis of Dufferin and Ava, and then named it after his own adored mother, Helen Selina Sheridan, Baroness of Dufferin and subsequently Countess of Gifford. But Helen's Tower is not unique, for there is another, built 70 years later. It stands not in Ireland but in northern France, and it commemorates the men of Ulster who fell in the First World War. The sun gets lower in the sky and the days shorten, and another season is drifting into a pleasant memory. As winter draws on, the scene slowly changes. The emphasis not so much on reality but on effects, the effects of climate on nature. There is not much outside work at this time of the year. The ground is frozen hard and often covered with a few inches of snow, but it is a time for thinking about another year's work. Perusal of catalogues which are coming in the post, a drawing up of plans for reshaping the borders, or even introducing new plants. Every season has its own set of activities. As the preacher in the good book has said, to everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up, He has made everything beautiful in its season, and I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever.